IVM.
From trying to write his resume to discovering his inner self that actually helped him write, and I'm not kidding, a 180-page resume of himself. Through this resume, he found his story that he was so longing to hear, and in turn found the meaning of his own existence. Well, I know all this sounds very complicated. I'm sure all of us struggle writing even a one-page resume, but it is true. This man has a 180-page long resume. Apart from that, he loves running, and he's run several marathons and all kinds of ultra marathons. But more than all of this, one thing about my guest today, which is none other than Dash, or what we call him, Thirthankar Dash, who is a storyteller, and his job is to know your story and help you discover yourself in your own language. More interestingly, Dash also has a very, very unique quality that he has the calmness of a sage, knowledge of a monk, but he's as sharp as a sword. So, welcome to the show, Dash.
Thank you very much, Vishal. I think I've gotten the first 3 pages of my resume now rebuilt. Thanks to that.
Absolutely. We really, really need to build your resume. But I think more interestingly, I know a lot of people know you as this big guy who runs this amazing research company. But I know you something very differently. We first met when you were running frantically on Marine Drive.
Yeah.
Tell me, did you run today?
Yes, I get up in the morning and in Bombay, and I can't stop from smelling the sea in the morning. So at 5:30 I got up. I mean, it's a little addiction that I carry. So I must be honest. All of us carry our little addictions. That's my little addiction.
So you ran on the Marine Drive? Where
yes,
did you run?
It's from Pedder Road to Marine Drive and back. Nice 12 kilometers.
So I did a 9 kilometer today actually on Marine Drive.
Really?
I was on Marine Drive itself, but I started late. I was like at 6:30.
Okay.
Again, I'm training for the Mumbai Marathon, right?
I
presume you're running that.
No, I'm not.
So what is the next marathon you're running?
I'm doing the 2 oceans in South Africa.
Oceans in South Africa.
Yeah,
what is that?
So it's a ultra marathon that you run at the edge of Africa when you move from one ocean to the other. At the
on the Cape of Good Hope.
Cape of Good Hope, yeah.
Wow.
So I want to conserve my energies for that.
When is that happening?
That's in April.
Wow. So running is your tonic. You call it your meditation, your ritual. How did you get into running?
Accidentally so. It was thanks to one of my friends who said, give some money for a charity. You may not run, but why don't you just put some money in? So I put some money and I said, now that I've paid, I must extract the value of that. So it was a 10-kilometer charity run from Priyadarshini Park to somewhere. And I told my driver, just hang around there. I know I'm not going to do more than 3 kilometers. So, I just don't want to embarrass myself beyond a point. So I said, you just wait here. Let me just go and give it a shot. But I just wanted to feel what it means to run. And so I ran 3, 4, 5, 6. And I was like, man, this is not so bad. It's just a whole different part of my body enjoying itself. And came back, did the 10K. And I did it in good time. And the person who was most surprised was myself. And so next day morning, I woke up and bought myself the fanciest shoes and started running. And I started in 6 months, I ran my first marathon. So from not running at all
to doing a 42.
To doing a 42 in 6 months. So it's been one of the most fascinating. So you have the ability to surprise yourself.
This was which year?
This was 7 years back.
Oh, so almost 2011, 2010, 2011.
2011,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you also part of Striders, right? This is the same group we used to run together.
Actually, it was funny. With Striders, I must tell you a story there.
Yeah.
So I started running like a maniac. So I used to do about 60, 70 kilometers a week from the time I started running. So I just realized I could run. And kind of a natural born ability that I carried. So, and then I thought I started having aches and pains in my body. So I said, now I must go and meet someone who knows what should I be doing as a runner. So I walked into Striders and I met this guy, Deepak, and he said, so do you want to run? I said, yeah. So how long have you been running? I said, about a month. And he said, so how much do you run? I said, about 70 kilometers. You're like, what's wrong with you? And so I was probably the first rider guy who he slowed down. He's like, no, you're not going to run 70, you run 20. I'm like, I don't know how to run 20. I only know. So he had to pull me back and slowly scale up. So it was great fun.
And your first marathon was in Mumbai?
Yes, it was Mumbai. Yeah.
But this talk is not about your marathon running. We know you can do that in your walk, in your sleep. I'm more interested in knowing, how did you write a 180-page resume, and what was the first page and the last page about?
Right. Well, that's a very, very, very personal story. Actually, it starts with the collapse of my ego. I mean, a lot of good journeys start where your ego dies.
Yeah, but you were like, the cat's whiskers, right? You scored really well in your cat exams.
Yeah, all of that. So the cats happened, and the levers happened, and the corporate world happened. And so, what they do is they pump you up a bit. And all of that, so you start thinking you're invincible. And somewhere society kind of fans that fire, and you start feeling that, you can do it all. And then I did that, and I became an entrepreneur at the age of 32. Being an entrepreneur is not bad. It's just that there was an arrogance behind it, which was not necessarily the healthiest of things. So what happened there was a lot of it is grace, faith, what they call synchronicity. So I was in the petrochemicals business. That was the year the crude oil shot up from $40 to $140.
$100, yeah.
And things tumbled around me all over the place. And so in spite of all the strategy, the BCG matrices and blah, 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 everything that I had learned that, if I have all this toolkit, I'll design businesses, things collapsed, and collapsed in a way that I had not prepared myself for.
No, but people do fail in business all the time. It's not like it's a new thing, but why did your ego had to collapse?
Yeah, because, there are two failures. One is the external failure, the other is the internal failure. And they are two completely different things. So when you fail in your own faith, that's a huge failure. Entrepreneurs fail, which is perfectly fine. But that's like a game lost, which is very different from what am I doing here? And what is our next game I should play? I didn't have an answer to that question.
But you were in a similar situation, I remember, even when you finished your college and you didn't get into IIM.
Correct.
So how did you face that?
Well, that was because I came out of a small little, small town and didn't have the confidence. So
Rourkela, right?
Rourkela. Yeah. It was actually a village away from Rourkela. So
wow.
Rourkela is where I went to study. It was 60 kilometers from Rourkela. My father ran a small hospital of 20 beds, and so I used to take a little.
So 60 kilometers is where that was the distance between your school and your home?
Yes. I used to travel 1.5 hours every day in a bus to school and come back again. So it's through the jungles. So that was the journey that I took. A bunch of us were there in a little township called Birmitrapur, and we used to drive.
And how did your dad end up there?
Well, he was a government doctor in Odisha, and he jumped from one place to the other. That's what So he ran a small healthcare thing, and then he started going to villages where there were no schools. So at some point, he said, "Listen, I have to quit a government job so that you guys can study, me, my sister, and my brother." So he quit his job to join a small mining company. Because he could create stability for his family and an English medium school for his kids. So he set up a small little hospital for that mining company, a 20-bedded hospital. So he lived there for 30 years. He ran that hospital. And so I grew up in that small little town, and I
not even town. You can't call it a...
Yeah, it was a little hamlet of sorts, and so I can speak tribal, Sadri language. And so we grew up with all of that fun there. So I, of course, studied a lot, but except I had not interacted with the world in a way that, you guys would have made, in the big cities. So I was low on confidence. So while the CAT happened, I struggled with the ability
And you were like very good, very high score on CAT.
Yeah, but, I failed in the group discussions, as they call it, I didn't have the way to speak on my way into the colleges then. So the CAT scores were good, but when you sit in front of 12 boys and girls from Bombay and Delhi
and have a debate or whatever discussion,
it is the most challenging part.
I can't imagine you not having a discussion. It's very difficult to catch up with you in a discussion now.
Yeah, but that's the gym that you visit. So when you're challenged, some people jump up, and so that's been my biggest acts of heroism. All my I can't do it. or can I do it? And then I would say,
And
listen,
then you
how
become
do
the
I?
best at it.
You work, yeah. You grow those muscles. And if you push yourself, I mean, that's been the trick in my life. Like when I faced with a challenge, I go to the depths of it. I don't say I'm going to run away from it. So when I failed, I'm like, I'm going to go to the depths of it, saying, where do I work from? And that's a good question to ask, saying, what part of me failed? And it's a good question to ask, because did my attitude fail or does my skill fail? So,
But there are many people who face this problem of not good English, not confidence. Not everybody is able to then, I mean, for them, this failure becomes the biggest problem of their life and they get into a shell and all of that, right? So what could they have done differently, what you did, to come out of this?
I think you have to start loving yourself, firstly. You must fall in love with who you are.
Okay.
That's the first love and the last love. I mean, the
So
idea...
you have to be extremely selfish.
Completely selfish. With the SELF capital, the self as you know it. And you must honor that idea of the self. And this idea of failure then is like, how do I strengthen myself in some ways? And my relationship with myself has been deep all along, as a child, as a thing. So when failure happens, I work hard at with the self again. I'm like, I go back to that self. It's my monastery of self, as I call it. That's where I live.
Monastery of self.
Monastery of self. I live there. Okay. I'm the only person in that monastery. I have to work with myself. I'm the wizard and I'm the student there.
Okay.
I've never visited religion for answers. I've never visited, gurus and people for answers. I always have felt that you have to exercise with yourself. And the
But
failures are...
That time you must be like 18 or 19. How old were you?
So
this monastery has been operational since then.
All along. So my default mode is go work within.
Mm-hmm.
Go work within, because you control that. I mean, I'm a design guy, as they call it. I mean, I don't control the world, I control myself. So I have to work with my variables that I know. The variables that I don't know, I can't control them.
Yeah, you can't control.
So for you to control those variables, you know what the variables are. So I feel, okay, I need to work on communication. I need to work on this, and worked my way into it. So it's something that you must tell yourself that, the me is not an abstract idea. It's like a real, tangible, touchable idea for me.
And then you ended up in Goa. I mean, how was that? I mean, from Odisha, small village or hamlet to be in the party capital of India.
I know. It was... it sort of unlocked the new me in some ways, because in Odisha, I thought I was a trapped guy. I was like, yes, I mean, no one knows me and all of that. And suddenly I land up in Goa and the world expands. And I mean, accepted my friends. I met friends who've been with friends all along with me. And people who understood my abstractions in Odisha, like, what are you talking about? What are you thinking? No one would... I wouldn't resonate, but in Goa, apart from the parties and the stuff, of course, yeah, that was there. But I met, people who understood my abstractions. And
everything makes sense in Goa somehow.
Everything, it just comes together. It's beautiful. The beach, and so you sit, and of course there were the parts that you don't want to talk about, and then it liberates you to, it's what the people in the 60s did. The spirit of that stays. The flower movement.
So, how did you get into Goa? I mean, if all the other IIMs rejected you, what was the turning point in Goa accepting you?
I had no other choice.
So they didn't have a group discussion.
They didn't have a group discussion. What the professor did was that, I'm going to give you all 10 minutes to talk about a topic. And that liberated me. Now I can talk. If you give me an idea and I could share. So the trick to Goa was there was no group discussion.
Okay.
So I managed to enter that space without the struggle.
So it would have been a big loss to humanity if Goa had a group discussion.
No, not about that. I would have not enjoyed Goa parties if that had not happened. The big loss to me, the bangda fish kept me going.
Yeah, man, the food of Goa is so outstanding.
It's amazing. It's like heaven on earth.
So you don't make it to IIM.
Yeah.
You go to Goa Institute of Management. I don't know how rated or unrated the school is. I'm not an MBA guy.
You don't have to worry about that.
But then how did you get your first job?
I did not.
You did not?
I did not get my first job. I liked this idea of concepts and brands and ideas. And so I was the guy in college. I was probably the only guy in my business school who decided not to apply for jobs, because there were finance jobs, there were marketing jobs. And I was very clear the kind of work I wanted to do. which
But
was
at that age, how can you be so clear, man? Even I'm not clear even today in what I want to do at times.
you should ask my friends. I've maintained what's called the diary of me, and even today I would tell you that. I always track, the thing called what's it looking like.
So you are doing, self-tracking and quantified self even before this word was ever invented.
It was part of my limbic system. This tracking of me, and if you visited me in my childhood, you would see walls full of doodles. I was a dyslexic kid, but I would sketch everything out, saying, how is my day going to look like?
So you were like planner number 101, right?
Yeah,
you planned everything.
I'm an obsessive planner.
Wow.
And which is why planning life is the easiest. So the rest of it...
the only thing I don't plan is I don't plan. The only thing in my plan is that I don't plan at all.
Yeah, spontaneity at the end of planning is different from spontaneity at the beginning of planning. So if order in my life frees me up to do things that I want to do.
And I enjoy chaos. I thrive in chaos.
Which is why you and I resonate.
If things are in order, I have a problem. But let's think about, your order. So you have planned everything out, right? So whatever is happening in your life today, I'm sure this must already be in one of your plans.
Yeah, so there is a base plan, and after that there's magic. So what happens is you create a base plan. So, this is where I'm going to operate from. What I call, where's home? Ghar ka hai?
So in Goa, you made this base plan.
Yeah.
So what was the base plan?
The base plan was to go out and find a place where I would thrive in. What is a creative job? And I was looking for a creative job. All the jobs were...
But you are a planner. Planners and all these people are not creative, man.
They are. You must understand.
I thought creative matlab, किसी के पास timeline नहीं होता है. आओ, मेरे को idea जब आएगा,
Creativity, Vishal, creativity is...
Creativity cannot be planned.
So what happens is, once you create a base, which is, if things are taken care of, your mind is free to, it's the mind that travels. Creativity is the mind that travels. Now, once you create...
So you send your mind to a holiday.
Correct.
On a holiday by planning the holiday.
I plan it all out so that in that space, I create vacuum for me to think. And then, I'm not thinking about...
So I think people have a shortcut to do that, right? They take psychedelic drugs, a lot of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So isn't that what you are saying
totally,
in a way?
Absolutely. And, the dose of perception is that. You go through that portal and you vanish into that world of that, but knowing very well that...
So are you saying that if I just start planning heavily, I may get into...
Things will fall off because they will become irrelevant. So, what you'll do is you plan your way out of things that don't matter to you. And then you stay in the creative space with things that bring you joy.
Okay.
So I don't plan my fatherhood. Let's say, how am I going to manage my child? I don't think about that. But I create a home where I can flourish as a father, let's say. So I'm thinking along those lines.
Okay.
You get security out of your head. You take, and the other thing is that this idea of awareness. Planning is also linked to awareness. Ki main kaun hu? And today you will say, why do you wear red? Or why do we carry a character? There must be coming from somewhere. And now there is a plan that's been designed. And you must come to terms with that plan of yours. Your plan's growing, whether you're aware of it or not. It's there. It's operating behind you all the time.
So it's like the underlying operating system which is working.
Your OS is there. Your operating system is already operating.
So
you just need to anchor yourself in that. Now that's the better way of explaining it. What's your operating system? Now whether it's your attitude, whether it's your personality, whatever that is. From there, you are your most creative self.
Then your apps can work if you have the right operating system working.
Totally. And your OS needs to be upgraded once in a while. You're saying, what next?
Now I get it, yeah. So how did you get into your first job? You were telling me that.
Yeah, so I went hunting for a job in a creative space. So I wanted to explore. So there was this ad agency. They said, okay, we have an apprentice job. Would you come and work as an apprentice? I said, no, that sounds interesting because advertising was a cool thing then. And I said, I must go and try that out. So the B school trains you to be a CEO. And then the next thing you do is you're a courier boy. And that's how big the fall is usually. So the B school trained me to be the CEO. And the next thing I was doing is I was carrying artworks to clients' offices and running and delivering them and stuff.
And taking their signature ki okay, approve kiya to yahan sign karo.
Yahan karo and and being slapped by the creative agency and being slapped by the whatever.
And this was in Bombay?
This was in Calcutta.
Calcutta?
Yeah. So I ended up in Calcutta. And
Calcutta is the most sleepiest town in the country.
Yeah, and I thought it was a creative town also. At that point, soch wale bande wahan pe rehte hain.
जब सोच गहरी हो जाए तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम होती है.
बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता है. So ये मैं बहुत जल्दी पता हो गया. So then I left Calcutta for Bangalore.
Okay, yeah, that's better. Yeah, Calcutta, like getting anything done is impossible.
It's a miracle. I mean, it's Calcutta is the act. Thought is act in Calcutta.
Yeah.
सोच लिया तो वो action भी हो गया. So उसके बाद करना नहीं पड़ता.
Exactly.
The thought, the action equals thought. So the Calcuttas can have a cup of tea and says काम हो गया because मैं सोच लिया हूँ.
Yeah.
So I went to Calcutta and I realized I'm not going to go anywhere in Calcutta. I moved to Bangalore, moved from advertising to marketing, and started looking at innovation, marketing, brands.
But that is again traditional, right? I mean,
all of that, yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, what you did was you followed the traditional path. I mean,
Totally.
this is not the non-traditional path.
Correct.
Advertising and then brand.
Correct.
You first work for a client, you work for the agency, then you work for a client.
Correct. So, like I said, my life, as I see my broad life of 44 years, there are three parts. The first part was hitting Goa, like you said, was this, what I call the life of the dreamer. Dream kar raha tha, kahan jayega. The second life was that of a conqueror. I wanted to conquer the way the world has conquered. So, you've got intelligence, you've got brain start, the corporate world. And being an entrepreneur was a peak of that conqueror job.
Okay, so after your success at Unilever is where you worked,
Unilever,
right?
Pepsi, Wipro.
Wow, all these companies. And then you said, forget all this, I'm going to start my own company.
Yeah, no, I mean, join a bunch of people to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, to start a company.
Yeah.
And that idea completely tanked.
That's right.
So how did you come to this petrochemical idea, first of all? I mean, how was that connected with everything you were doing?
Like I said, the creative self searches for that you don't understand. I mean, then you reach out to those. No, I knew the soaps and the shampoos. I did not.
Okay.
अच्छा उससे क्या मजा आएगा यार? I mean, साबुन तेल बेच के, and I was getting bored of. I wanted deeper challenges. I've always searched for, what's the next big mountain to conquer? So at that point, the petrochemical was a big enough mountain. I need to understand what all this thing is. One soap sells for 10 rupees. A petrochemical deal sells for 10 million. I mean, so I'm like, I wanted to understand what's the big picture view of business. So that's what took me there.
Okay.
But, of course, it didn't work out, but it was a fascinating world of how that, business is not, selling of a soap has its own story. Selling of a shampoo has its own story. Selling of, barrels and, gallons of fuel is a different story altogether.
But you said that you had planned all of this. So what did you plan and what did you not plan?
I'd planned the journey of so I wanted to climb up faster. I mean, I could see the ladder, but I didn't know where I was going with that. But that plan failed, honestly. And so when that plan fails, then the anxiety is much deeper.
No, but I mean, at 32, this was again early 2000. When was this?
Yeah, 2005. Yeah.
2005. Even at that point of time, at age of 32, setting up a company was itself a big deal, right?
It was a really big deal, yeah.
And did you kind of raise money for this, or how did you?
Yeah.
So this was like a completely funded startup.
Completely funded startup. We bought out a small little venture. We put money into it. We started building it. It was an offshoot of the Madras refinery. It was, a downstream company from there.
But why did you give that up? I mean, as you said, right? I mean, things don't work. You keep fixing it till it works.
Correct.
That's the approach, right?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, the crisis was much deeper. So I had a life crisis. And that's really the tipping point. It was not the failure of entrepreneurship. It was not the failure of that business. It was failure of my own inner self that triggered this journey into where I am today.
But how did that shatter your ego? What is that link?
It was that my plan failed.
Okay.
You see, when you think you're in love with your plan and your plan fails, you're like, what next?
But in startup world, that's what we try and do. We just want to fail fast and keep repeating, right?
So that's the external failure, right? The internal failure is different. That how could I not crack it? I mean, how do I want to do another startup and fail again? Do I want to do another startup and fail again? So that's the question. But I had a question on the operating system. That what operating system am I using to work on that startup? I mean, are there other models available for me? As a business model concept, I would say, do I do this or do I do something completely different?
Okay.
In some ways that I didn't want to make a series of mistakes for the sake of...
Just kind of help me understand this. You are a kid from a tribal area in Odisha who comes to Goa and then does all this and then is already developing operating systems.
Yeah. It was...
So how did this operating system idea come from? Were you reading some books or... What was the origin of this?
So, see, that is, again, other than running, the other addiction I have is reading.
Oh,
and I think this is where they say you can see the distance because you're sitting on the shoulders of giants. And that's where I've been sitting.
So which books influenced you the most?
As I grew up, of course, different books. The first book was my grandfather's Gita.
Wow.
So this is a man who used to sit, in the courtyard of my hometown, little home there, and he used to talk to me about it. And by the way, he gifted me a Gita, which was written by an atheist.
Wow.
Like, Gita is a book of life. Don't think of it as a religious
It's supposed
idea.
to be the best MBA management lesson in the world, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the horses are your senses, Arjuna is your mana, and someone's breaking it all down to saying what you... So it started with something as cryptic as that. And so I think he sort of put in me the gene of learning. Probably it's my granddad who sort of designed the brickwork around my brain.
But tell me again, at 32, you were young enough, but, and your ego was shattered. So what did you do? How did you fix that?
I couldn't fix it, actually. I was in depression. I wish I could fix it.
Okay.
I was struggling. And I was struggling in a way that what people classify as clinical depression today.
Mm.
And
that you got married also around the same time, I presume.
No. I've been married 19 years.
Oh, wow. So this is like...
This was the year my son was coming to meet us.
Ooh.
Which was, you must understand the bigger context of it.
Okay.
So my wife said she was pregnant and my business was not working and I had no money in the bank. So it was like this perfect storm in my life. So it was not just...
where did you meet your wife? Was that planned
in
too?
Calcutta.
Calcutta, okay.
Yeah.
Calcutta at least got you some results.
Yes. The ROI in Calcutta has been high.
And what was she doing in Calcutta?
She was a media planner in the agency that I was working as a courier boy.
Well, I must say you got a big package from there.
Totally. I mean, of course, that continues to hang around in my house. So, I mean, a lovely gift. And she and I have been living, journeying along 19 years.
So how did you overcome your challenge in...
At 32.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was and people who know me know how anal I get about finding answers to questions. I mean, deep in my mind, I'm a problem solver. Like, I need to find the nichod of it. And it's that obsessive, compulsive behavior in me. So, I must find out what's my operating system. So there were many different... So, no, actually, I sat down to write my resume. It was saying, let me see where I can find a decent job. Because wife said she was pregnant. And there was a kid coming to a house. And it was a very natural idea. And then I couldn't write my resume because I didn't know what to put there. I mean, am I a marketing person? Am I an engineer? Am I a advertising guy? Am I an innovator? Am I an entrepreneur? There were so many layers to this personality that I didn't know where it was all anchored in. And that disturbed me a lot. That's a tipping point. It was not any of the other things. It's the inability to answer a question of who am I in the
monastery of I.
In the monastery of I. And I said, I must find answers to that question. So I spoke to my wife and said,
मैं कौन हूँ?
I mean, she was like, why are you bothered about it? You always do this to yourself. And it's not my wife. My mother knows it. The same guy. I mean, I have been consistent in being this irrationally, stuck up person. Why are you asking this question? Just go and look for a job somewhere. Don't worry yourself.
Google it, man. Why are you asking all these questions? Just Google.
Absolutely. And she was like, no. It won't work this way. I need to find an answer. And people who know me well know me this, that I would do that extra mile. So I said, I must find out. And I reached out to my granddad. Granddad said, you must go to the scriptures. You will find all the answers there. So I took it very seriously.
Oh.
I said, granddad saying, must be there. So I went to Rishikesh.
Wow.
I said, I must find answers in Rishikesh. So I landed up in the Shivananda ashram.
अरे ऋषिकेश ये वाराणसी ऐसी जगह पे क्यों आंसर है? मतलब बॉम्बे और ऐसे दिल्ली की जगह में कोई आंसर क्यों नहीं मिलता है?
क्यों इसलिए नहीं मिलता है कि आप एस्ट्रोनॉमी जानते हो?
Astronomy is the stars, right? Yeah.
So observatories कहाँ पे होते हैं?
There's a sky.
But where are they set up? In
open areas, I guess.
Open areas and mountain tops, because
mountain tops, yeah.
वहाँ पे होते हैं जहाँ पे कि आपको थोड़ा noise कम हो.
Okay.
So that you can observe better.
So less signal.
Yeah. So what you are supposed to do is find a place where there's less.
Varanasi is like completely chaotic, traffic, guy everywhere.
Correct.
It's not.
Yeah. So
quiet.
It's not. So Rishikesh mein.
Okay.
I mean,
Rishikesh is quieter, okay.
Rishikesh is quieter. It was nicer, but it's not like the noise is inside us. The noise is not outside. So we go to these places thinking that they're quieter places. They're actually not. The mountain is not a quiet place. The mountain can be as noisy as you want it to be. But it's, people run there because they search for that silence there. So the monks who go there, who found this, that's a different issue. I mean, but I was not going there. I didn't find the silence. I was as agitated there.
No, but again, my question is why Rishikesh? Why not, Sun Temple in Konark or, Vishakhapatnam or Kanyakumari?
No, because I was driven by the scriptures, the Hindu scriptures of the Upanishads and the Vedas and stuff.
But Rishikesh mein kya tha?
So where the Shivananda ashram, they actually took courses and giving you answers.
So you went to attend a course in an ashram.
That's right.
I thought you just
No, I didn't want. I mean, there was a pregnant wife at home. Why would I randomly run away? Kahan bhag ke jaunga?
I mean, Steve Jobs had come, Mark Zuckerberg has also come.
Correct.
So,
But there was a wandering, a search for truth. But here I was, actually, I had a list of questions to answer. So, as in, naukri kaisa hona chahiye, and I listed down everything. Was sadharma kya hota hai? Because I had read the scriptures earlier. So, I went with the book of questions. I hired, myself a little place and I would go to monks in the morning and ask them those questions. Batao mere ko iska jawab do.
Monks must be thinking, are you serious?
बिल्कुल, I mean, they were like, तुम हमको पागल कर रहे हो यार, हम लोग शांति में बैठे हैं, तुम सवाल लेके आ जाते हो. And
what were the questions like?
I had a battle like, so मेरे को, what is right action? Tell me. So, एक monk, like, how do I know what is right action? Because सुबह से लेकर रात तक I take action. How do I decide? Let's think, शांति क्या होती है? बताओ. Then I said, इसका स्वधर्म किसको कहते हैं? So I pulled down, put down many things. कहते हैं ना, koshas होता है. They said it's a annamaya kosha, manamaya kosha, jnanamaya kosha. I'm like, अच्छा मेरे को explain करो, manamaya kosha में क्या है? So
you were like one of those students in the course का पैसा भरा, हर एक question का answer लेने के
question का answer चाहिए. Because it was not that I didn't know, because I thought these guys had the answers to this. Job कैसे होना चाहिए? Like तुम लोग यार वहाँ पे बैठते हो, यहाँ पे हम काम करते हैं, कुछ तो connection होना चाहिए उसके साथ. So I went with the battery of questions. The monk caught me, and he was a psychologist. He said, well,
a psychologist monk.
Yeah. So he was a monk who's a psychologist. He said, कि आप don't bother spirituality with your stupid questions. उनको अपने जगह में रहने दो. What you should go and search for is psychology. तुम psychology पढ़ो. Okay. उसके अंदर सब मिलेगा तुमको answer. He's saying this is transcendence. This is not engagement. What you are asking for is how do I engage with the world? This doesn't give you answers to that. It gives you a spaceship view of what the world is, but it doesn't say what do you get up in the morning to do. The idea of, so he gifted me a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He said, "Ye kitab padho," and that book is the switch that triggered this life. That book is literally is the switch that.
So, what is the book in a nutshell? What does it say?
It is Viktor Frankl is a guy who was a psychiatrist who was caught in the concentration camp, the Jewish concentration camp, and he saw. So he lost his family there and all. But except that he knew how the mind operated, and he was fascinated by what was happening in the concentration camp. So he realized this very simple thing, that the stimulus was the same. The stimulus of torture being the same, the response of the inmates was different. Think, what is it that differentiates one inmate from the other? Because physiologically it doesn't depend if you're physiologically stronger, doesn't mean that you give up later. So he started discovering patterns in people who did not lose what he called the will to live. Some people gave up, some people didn't. And he said, I must unlock what keeps the will to live going. And he coined this thing called logotherapy, of finding meaning in life. He said, someone who finds that meaning, in the context of that, everything else becomes, you make sense of everything else. So that book gave me that word called meaning. And he said, what's your meaning? So that was a question that I asked. And all the questions collapsed into that one question. What is meaning of my life? And then equivalent of question that, what's your story then? Because he refers to it. What is that? What is a myth? A myth is an image.
So now that you found the answer, sab kuch theek ho gaya, then you should have said, okay, I got the answer. Now you could have come back and continue.
No. So I came and studied psychology for 4 months. Oh. So I didn't. So I started studying psychology. I said,
so you went to Rishikesh. Then you went somewhere else?
No, so I came back and I started working. So as I was getting out of the thing, so I started studying psychology. Freud, Jung, Adler, Maslow's. I gorged through 60 years of psychology.
How do you study psychology?
Like you study any other science, you just sit and pick up. It's fascinating.
Is there like an online course?
Yeah. There are many courses, and happy to because if you Google for courses on psychology, you will have tons of them. And there are books. So it was easy for me because I've always been in the world of books. So it was like, who are this from? I tracked it down from 1887 to 1980.
So psychology is this young in terms of the
that young, yeah. Psychology is 100 years old. Which is why I think it's just the least understood science of them all. In fact, psychology was born out of the death of philosophy. Philosophy died, but psychology was born. But psychology is a science which is actually the science that is the most important today. Because when you talk about mental health, when you talk about depression, all that, what you're actually talking about is the psychological part of you.
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Hello, I'm Sanjeev.
And I'm Tushar.
And this is the Rotomouth Podcast, a weekly show where we talk about motors and motoring in India. Cars, bikes, rickshaws, buses, friends, familiars, and time pass.
Find us every week on the IVM podcast app or any other app you might use. Stuck in traffic? Put on Rotomouth. Taking a while in the loo? Rotomouth is there for you.
Dude, that sounded particularly disgusting.
Thank you. But seriously, catch Rotomouth every week.
So when you got the answer, the meaning, you studied psychology. And then what happened?
Then I made questions. All that I do in my life is write questions.
Okay.
So I wrote 22 questions and interviewed 52 people about me.
You interviewed 52 people about yourself?
So I started traveling around and asking, interviewing father, mother, ex-girlfriends, teachers. So I said, Acha, what are the fondest memories of me?
22 questions.
22 questions I had about
and
myself.
These are like multiple choice or you could just answer anything?
No, it was not multiple choice. They were qualitative questions. Like,
good, better, best.
No. I said, Acha, mere ko koi kaam doge tab kaun sa kaam doge?
And you kind of sent them the question or you sat with them?
I sat with them. And I used to take a tape recorder and record.
A lot of times people on your face would say something else, on your back would say something else, right? With this.
No, but these were people who have known me personally and genuinely, like your father and your mother and your friends.
Okay. So these are not random people.
They were not random people. People who had data about me.
Okay.
People who had data and genuine data. And so I realized that I needed to collect psychological data about me.
Okay.
And psychological data is fun data to have. If you ever really want to know...
So what was the most good and the most not so good thing you heard about yourself from these interviews?
Many not good. Like you're a kite flyer, you were never on earth. You will, all of that was like, you're never grounded in reality was the negative part, and you have very little patience. You switch off.
You ask too many questions.
You ask too many questions. You're an idealist. You will never, you're too much of an idealist. तुम कुछ भी नहीं कर पाओगे. तुम खाली हवा में रहते हो. And जिंदगी ऐसा नहीं होता है. There were a lot of such feedback, and then on the positive side, like you've always been by yourself.
This is actually a good exercise. I must try it, and I think everybody listening should make not 22, maybe start with 5 questions about yourself.
मैं आपको 5 पूछ लेता हूँ ना कि अच्छा आपका ऑटोबायोग्राफी का टाइटल क्या है जो आप अगर लिखोगे उसका टाइटल क्या है?
If I write my autobiography, what will be the title? The title is You Can If You Think You Can.
Lovely. एक और सवाल पूछता हूँ. I'm not going to analyze anything.
but no analysis.
अच्छा आपको life imprisonment हो गया. You are shoved into a cell, let's say for 10-15 years, and you can't. You are allowed 3 objects to carry into that prison cell. What would you carry?
Can it be electronic objects or
no? You're a prisoner. You can't access the world. There's no internet. There's no TV. You can carry 3 objects.
3 objects in a prison. Of course, a book.
What book?
What book? Okay.
You have to be very specific. You can't say book.
You have to be very specific on what book. I would clearly say a good book to carry is the Mahabharata. It has like emotion, drama, all kinds of things in one book. So
that's
you can get entertained. You can. The second thing I would love to carry is a pen.
Okay.
So that I can jot down ideas, do things. And the third thing which I would like to carry is some sandalwood.
Sandalwood.
because it is one of those things which even if you rub on your body, it gives you the fragrance of freshness and gives you new ideas and reminds you of festivities.
Nice. And third question, if we're having dinner tonight and if we could invite 2 people from history to have dinner with us.
From history?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who would you invite?
Steve Jobs and Mahatma Gandhi.
Steve Jobs and
Mahatma
Gandhi. Okay. Vishal, I lock you up in a place called your happiness room. Vishal's happiness room. There are 5 things or people, whatever you want to put there. Every time you go there, you become happy. What's in your happiness room?
It can have both material objects and...
Yes.
So, of course, video games. So, I...
Absolutely, yeah.
My kids. My kids, video games. Family, I would say in general. That kind of combines mom, dad, everyone. I would then say I would need a book, which in this case would be book about mountains.
Really?
I like to, not scale that many mountains, but I like books about mountains. And another thing which I would love is a yoga mat.
Interesting.
तो हो गए 5 की कुछ बाकी है?
5 हो गया.
Yeah.
Last question. I'm not, because and last question is, I'm staring at Vishal Gondal's tombstone. What does the epitaph read? What will
the tombstone read?
Yeah, what's the tombstone read?
Okay. Had more confidence than capability.
Had more confidence and capability. Vishal, what I'm doing with you is, these are questions that I would ask. I have been asking myself these questions.
And you ask all your other friends about yourself. These questions.
Questions, and now I ask them to ask themselves these questions, because what you're giving me is psychological data about you. Underneath each answer lies an insight about Vishal Gondal.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them you might not be aware of. And very few people can answer it as quickly as you did.
Oh, okay.
Which means, there is a minefield of that data that's lying. And if you think of yourself as an iceberg, you only touch the top, the tip of who you are. And so for you to really know yourself, your joy, your disease, everything lies inside of that iceberg. And this is the Vishal Gondal saying, why confidence? Why my kids? Why sandalwood? And in those whys lies the answer about who you really are. That's where you're operating from. That's your operating system.
That's exposing itself in these questions.
It's manifesting itself. So the more you're aware of it, the better. Once you know what that is, you can design your house, you can design your career, you can design your next startup. Because you know where is it coming from.
No, but what do you do with these questions? So let's say you get answers for this. What does one do with these answers? So
you start documenting and start seeing what I would call as pattern mapping. You bring it back to saying, you do data mining. They call it data mining. So I would start doing data mining. What you do is you do cluster analysis of that, saying, why do I say confidence in so many places? Why do I say, adventure, yoga mat? Or why do I say drama and gaming? So somewhere you will start seeing themes about your life, the underlying themes of your life. And so I do cluster analysis.
So you did this for yourself first.
Yeah.
And what were the results?
The result was the 180-page resume life maps that I created about myself. Dash's map of joy, Dash's map of fear.
So what was the reaction of the first person you showed this resume that, okay, now let's get this candidate, and you had this huge printout of 180 pages?
No, so I had a book of my life, but I thankfully didn't have that goal of that book, writing the resume to get a job. Strangely, I got a job without having to present the resume. So at the end of that, I meet this amazing lady who's like, oh, what are you doing these days, Dash? And I said, I'm researching myself. Are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm researching myself.
Must be like, kya hai?
So that's just, but I'm used to that response, So in fact, it energizes me. Tum kya kar raha hai ye sab? So I said, I'm
researching a very important topic right now. It's myself.
It's myself. Exactly. And she was like, now you see, there are people like those also in this world, and I've been so lucky to have, my journey has been gone through these people. So she was like, listen, you should be working with me. It's so cool. And so
there is somebody, the minute you said I'm researching myself, they said you should be working for me.
She's like, come.
So who was this lady and what is this company?
Kaushik. who runs an organization called Quantum Consumer Solutions. It's a research and insights company.
Research company में तो चाहिए ऐसे लोग जो research करते हैं.
Correct. She's like, listen, this is what we're looking for. So we forget the resume.
You even came up with some complicated word, right? What is this called? Researching people's life. You had said some word, na? Theography, or what is it called?
Logotherapy.
Not logotherapy. Something else. Theatry, where you go and study people in their own house. What's that called?
Oh, ethnography.
Ethnography, sorry.
Ethnography.
Yeah, I'm sure these words are very new for all of us. Right?
No, it's fascinating. Ethnography is, what the Britishers did many years back. The Britishers, when they wanted to conquer a land, they would send ethnographers out. Ooh. They said, please go and study the culture. Only once you are able to unlock the culture will you be able to capture that land.
Ooh.
So this is ethnography for you, which started with the Britishers, mastering the idea of understanding culture codes and understanding people. So they had proper ethnographers whose job, the British Empire sent ethnographers out. They came back with reports to saying, this is how this land is, these are the people are, these are the rituals. So then they designed their way into this.
So I was recently reading about these... During the Vietnam War, America had sent ethnographers to study Vietnamese people. And the ethnographers had already said America can never win that war.
Exactly.
Because we have studied the culture, we have studied everything, and they rejected all their reports and then this whole thing. Anyway, but now I get what you're saying. There was actually, so before you conquer, you kind of study. Wow, that's
so similarly, today you can use the same science to design a car. Saying what cultures are, whether you want to design the next city or your house. I mean, if I understand the culture, so there are only two forces that you need to win over to win anything in this world, I feel. Psychology and culture.
But these two are very difficult. It's like easy to set.
But these are the dark sciences which you need to unravel to find. After that, it's much easier. At the level of an individual, psychology. At the level of a group, culture. You will be able to crack open.
Psychology is individual and culture is group.
Is the collective. So the collective psychology is culture. It's the same force. It's psychology. The collective psychology is called culture. The individual psychology is called the psyche.
Wow. So this lady offers you a job at Quantum.
Correct.
And it's a research company. And you say, wow, I've entered my Disneyland or your La La Land, right? That's the perfect place for you, right?
Exactly.
You're getting paid to research.
Exactly. And that's the life I've lived for the last 11 years. I don't think I work. I mean, I haven't worked in the last 11 years, honestly.
Wow.
Because I would do it free of cost.
It just you have done it a lot for me, I know. Every time, ever since the Goki idea came, even before that, I have been chewing your brains on a number of these ideas.
Totally. And for me, it's like, I just enjoy doing this. Like, kyun karte ho? I said, main pata nahi aur kya karu. Mere ko aur kuch pata hi nahi hai karne ko.
So tell me, when I first told you the idea of Goki, this was, again, 2013 types.
Correct.
What was your reaction?
There were two different reactions. One was the reaction around Vishal, and the other was the reaction around the idea. Because I always separate the person from
the idea.
Wow. Because for me, they're completely different data sets. And then you can merge them at some point. But I had a fascinating sort of image of you as this maverick guy. I mean, India has a maverick. So I'm like, wow, thank God. They're all not stereotypical, boring, So you sort of, you were a little red spark in that, rather the purple cow of some sorts in that. So what you're talking about was secondary to the fact that this
quantified self.
We were running and talking about quantified self. I said, pata nahi kya cheez hai. I mean, you will track numbers and figures. And I was talking about saying, what is the equivalent of the qualified self of that? Qualitatively, how will I know someone? Because quantified self, of course, is important. But I have always thought that a combination of the qualitative side and the quantitative side is a true combination. Which is when you started talking about coaching, it made complete sense to me because you married the two sciences in one bucket.
Yeah.
And so while I met Vishal, and I was like, this guy is up to doing something interesting. His kitchen is cooking something really interesting there. Because and the idea of game has always energized me. The idea of the Leela and, conceptually, it's a game. I mean, if you look at my fundamental belief, it's a simulation. And we should have fun.
We all live in a simulation anyway, according to Elon Musk.
Exactly. So, not just Elon Musk, the Vedantas have also said the same thing.
Wow.
It's like, what is the notion of Maya?
Yeah.
It is, what is the notion of Leela? It's the eternal playground. It's a game on. That's what it is. Game on is
one life. Or maybe reincarnations. You keep coming back.
There'll be many episodes of that. So don't worry about what the thing is. You could just read.
Game never ends.
Game never ends. It's great fun. So the gamer in you and the maverick in you sort of attracted me. It's like, he's a gamer's way, which is fascinating. I mean, rarely do you find a gamer who sees beyond the game and is able to play it.
We call it metagaming.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Metagaming is what, it's a cool way to look at the world, I feel. And you have that lens, and every conversation with you is about, it's fun. It's joyous because you got the game code in you, You're not taking anything so seriously, mere ko wo karna, the anxiety of life. People get weighed down, and when people meet you like, isme wo jaan dal deta hai. Which is good. I mean,
I said always have more confidence, capability will follow. तो वो चीज तो भर के है हमारे पास.
बिल्कुल. And वो gift है यार. I mean, and you should distribute that. Apart from distributing other things, you should distribute that quality of yours. Because in all of us, there's a teacher. In all of us, what you teach is up to you. But एक quality, whatever you master, distribute that. And I'm sure there are avenues where you'll.
My dad used to always tell me कि एक ऐसी चीज है वर्ल्ड में जो जितनी बांटो उतनी बढ़ती है, वो है ज्ञान.
Totally.
So, that's exactly. And even with, the show and the podcast, that's the whole idea, right? I mean, I'm not only able to spread my gyan, but get people like you on the show who normally, people, you must be in some gufa, some cave somewhere, but getting you on and, talking about this is so amazing.
And the idea of energy, what you bring to board is this gamified energy of life. Be the force, as you said. I remember the day you coined it, and you're like, "Acha, ye bada mast hai yaar." And and then you spoke about some mountain that you wanted to name.
Yeah, we want to. Yeah, that's still in the business plan. We don't have the money yet.
वो आ जाएगा, don't worry, वो भी आ जाएगा. But I like the attitude you carry. I mean, ज्ञान तो होते रहते हैं यार. ज्ञान बहुत देते हैं लोग, but बहुत कम attitude design कर सकते हैं. I mean, ज्ञान तो बड़ा पैकेज है, किताबों में आ जाता है. But very few people can sell an attitude.
Yeah.
And that attitude is something to be gifted to kids, to entrepreneurs and stuff. वो attitude जिंदगी बना देते हैं.
Amazing. So coming back to your life, so you joined this research company. What's your first assignment there?
It was funny. I got an ice cream brand called Paddle Pop, and a Paddle Pop had a character. The Paddle Pop was a character.
I know they had some cartoon characters.
Characters. And can you imagine? So I was told to design the next story of Paddle Pop. Imagine, यहाँ पे मैं तेल बेचता था, and यहाँ पे मैं Paddle Pop आइसक्रीम का mythology design कर रहा हूँ.
But suddenly, you go to Rishikesh, you go to all these places, you meet all these gyanis, and then coming back and designing a character for ice cream.
Ice cream. But the fun part is I had to research kids for that.
Oh, okay.
So for me, every act energized me because अच्छा उसके लिए चलो बच्चों कौन सा कहानी पसंद है? Who's the hero? Who's the villain? Who's the partner? उनके बीच में क्या चल रहा है? What is the hero's journey all about? So I had to study Joseph Campbell's hero's journey to design a Paddle Pop story. So it brought me back to the roots of understanding human behavior. Every project of mine that I've done has taken me back to who's the human, what's the story? Who's the human, what's the story? So उससे आप कुछ भी बना सकते हो. आप गाड़ी भी बना सकते हो, एक कहानी भी बना सकते हो, एक brand भी बना सकते हो. But these are not strategies, they are stories converted into certain tangible ideas. What we said, and the design thinking, all that. You're just story crafting your way into something interesting.
So you have now started not only doing this for yourself or your brands, you are helping individuals do their own story. Tell me a little bit about that idea. What are you trying to do with people telling their story?
Yeah, it started with some of my friends coming up to me saying, "यार Dash तो अपने साथ वो सवाल पूछता था ना, वो कुछ अजीब से, so यार मेरे को थोड़ा लाइफ में आंसर्स चाहिए, I said, सवाल क्या है तेरा? He's like, जिंदगी के साथ क्या करूं?
ये सबका this is a common सवाल है.
This is a standard. I'm like, yeah, बड़ा boring सा सवाल है. You can't ask me that question.
Such an open-ended question.
Yeah, it's like and then say midlife crisis है यार, मेरे को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. पैसे वैसे कमा लिया हूँ, ये कर लिया हूँ, करूँ क्या? But that was one kind of questioning. So I said, chalo, I mean, you have to ask more interesting questions. Don't ask that question. Ask, my game kaun sa khelu ya, and stuff like that. But what hit me hard was when I faced this idea of mental health. And the idea, the single biggest disability today is what?
The mind.
Is depression.
Yeah.
Where does depression come from? It's inability to be in harmony with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it again emanates from the fact that I'm not happy where I am. The home that I live in inside, I'm not in sync with it. Depression starts there. Where is a terrorist born? In an act of disillusionment.
Brainwashing.
The brain is a factory that can destroy or build you. And in the spectrum of anxiety, मेरे को मजा नहीं आ रहा है. A lot of people say, and it's not about the midlife crisis of someone who's made a lot of money. A 14-year-old is struggling with that challenge. A 10-year-old, school में suicides हो रहे हैं.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of the mind, this stress of the psychological stress, is eating people up. And one day I walked into, because I've been damn lucky to be in a workplace where there is zero stress, because I enjoy what I do. But I walked into this place and I saw thousands of dead people there. Like वो पड़े हुए हैं वहाँ पे. And I was like, can you imagine you spend your whole day, I actually gave a talk about it, saying, what's the biggest epidemic in the world? What is the biggest epidemic in the world? It's called Monday.
Ooh.
It is.
Yeah, I know. Everybody
bulk of
Monday.
Humanity, yeah. Bulk of humanity go to work on a Monday, cribbing about. If money was not on the table, 87% people won't even think about going to work. So when I started seeing that layer of crisis, I had seen that crisis in myself, firstly. So I had seen it firsthand in my own personal life. Then I started seeing it in others, a 40-year-old, a 16-year-old. I saw it in a 30-year-old in an office. I started realizing that crisis is only getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting worse, and it's impacting not just the people and their own self, but they're impacting society at large. I mean, a father who's not healthy in the mind is impacting the family. The mother who's not healthy in the mind is impacting the relationship. So it's a chronic social problem.
And I mean, Modi ji also talked about it recently in his
He did.
podcast, right? Yeah. So mental health is now a huge problem in India.
Huge. And so I decided कि, अगर एक चीज, शुरू किया जाए कि conversations with yourself. The market for listening is massive, is infinite. So what if I can't change the landscape of mental health, but what I can do is make people talk to themselves. The need for self-empathy. कि आप अपने आप से तो बात कर सकते हो. That could cure a lot of problems, because loneliness is a huge issue. Similarly, this idea of isolation. And you might be in the middle of a crowd, but you'll still be isolated. And this ability to live, you've always lived someone else's life. Most of us have lived someone else's life, by the way. In your first crisis, you tumble. So that's what happened to me, because I had lived someone else's life till I was 32. That's what reality was. I literally lived my father's imagination of me, mother's imagination, my society's imagination of me. And when it hit me hard, and I flipped. And then I couldn't accept that identity for myself. I said, so what is my identity? So most of us live. But the moment you have a divorce, or there's a death, or there's a loss of job, whatever, you will start searching for main kaun hu.
No, and in fact, Luke talked about this, that one of the biggest causes of cancer, or at least one common symptom in all cancer patients, is mental stress.
Totally.
Which is caused by any of these emotional things.
Absolutely. And you don't deserve that. And the cures are... There are many cures. Religion knew it many moons back, by the way. Christianity set up confession booths where people can go and talk. But what happened was that, they knew it many moons back, because, I have caused sin. What is sin? You know what the sin means? The Hindi word for sin is paap. What does paap literally mean in English? It's not sin, it is agitation.
Oh.
That I'm in agitation with myself. Which is why all shlokas end with shanti, shanti, shanti. Tranquility, tranquility, tranquility. We are all searching for that sense of peace with ourselves, that ease with ourselves. I'm happy in my skin.
Yeah, people just can't sleep. I think one of the biggest challenge, because of a mind which is always operating, it's like your mind is always switched on. So Shanti is missing.
Shanti is missing. And we have to address that at a psychological level. So I said, we must do something about that.
Meaning, so Shanti, if you're listening to this show, please come back. We are here. Please, Shanti. Let's find Shanti.
Yes. That could be a game that you should design.
Absolutely.
You should design a game called Shanti Ka Hai.
So we are launching, by the way, a gaming platform called Games for Good, which is games which are good for your mind, memory, cognitive behavior. So I'll send you.
And you should start games for self-awareness as well.
Yeah, self-awareness is an interesting thing.
So this is my konu. At the core of it, it's self-awareness.
Yeah.
मेरे को code चाहिए मेरे. If I'm a programmer, what are the codes?
But when it comes to me, I always want to find the hacks. What are the cheat codes? So what are the shortcuts to find about yourself rather than doing all this complicated survey and all that? If everybody here had to find about themselves, give us 3 shortcuts.
There are no shortcuts to this. It's like, I need God, I need it in 5 minutes.
There can be shortcuts.
Yeah, so it's like saying,
there can be some hacks.
One of the nicest inventions in this world has been a diary. The shortest hack to that is a journaling.
Yeah, journaling. Tim Ferriss talks about it all the time.
If you ask me, honestly, the shortest hack is journaling. And spending time with yourself in the morning.
So what do you do in journaling? You just like scribble?
No.
Then?
So the trick with journaling is most people don't go to journaling because they do not know how to handle that conversation themselves. So what I do is I throw questions into that. It started with Carl Jung talking about saying that, he's like, you can't talk to your unconscious because the unconscious is hiding inside.
Who's Carl Jung?
Carl Jung. He's like a very famous psychologist. Really a famous psychologist. Okay. And he's like a guy who understands, who gifted the world of psyche to this world. Okay. The world psyche. Uske andar ka kaun hai wo? The animal inside of you who's really doing all of this. Aapke andar ka gamer or mere andar ka jo hai, It's all coming from a psyche. And when I talk to Vishal, I'm looking at the psyche, literally. All your behavior patterns, all your belief systems, everything is primarily your psyche talking. So that part. So he said, यार वो साइकी से बात करना पड़ेगा. जर्नल पे आप ये भी लिखते हैं मेरे को मजा नहीं आया, today like I disliked this, I enjoyed meeting this person, but going deeper, like saying मेरा autobiography क्या होगा, मेरा का नाम क्या होगा, what would I, if I could change my name, what would I name myself? Simple, very beautiful questions.
So you ask a new question to you every day?
Every day I throw a question at me and I try and write that without having any judgment of myself. Any judgment. Over a period of time, you will see patterns. You look at this answer book and you will see yourself staring at you. You don't have to be a psychologist to know that.
So your journal is ask a question to yourself and write the answer every morning.
Ask a trick question to yourself.
Like, give us 5 trick questions.
I asked the 5 trick questions to you. Could be more. Like, what's your mission statement of life?
Okay.
What's the next adventure you want to get on?
What if I don't have the answer? Then what do we do?
You will give answers. See, that's the separation that you create between your psychological self and your rational self. We are all irrational at some level. You're saying that you need to throw answers at that. If I could eat, what's your favorite food in the world? It's impossible that you would not have an answer. It's like, if I could go on the next holiday, where would I travel? Pick up. There are 1,000 destinations. Which one would you pick, Vishal?
Japan.
There you go. Some must be. So I'm gathering data. So this is a data mining process. You will have answers to all. And these are simple questions, not some cryptic question of, Atma ke andar kaun hai. None of that, You just ask questions which are very simple. Ki mere iPod mein agar 3 gana hoenge, if there are 3 songs.
Which will be those 3?
On loop. Which are the 3 songs? I'm sure you will have an answer. Ek movie jo main baar-baar hi dekh sakta hu, wo kya movie hoega? Uske niche data hai, Vishal. वो data में विशाल है.
So basically you keep journaling these questions but won't you run out of questions?
No.
How many questions will
there
you
are
have?
Infinite questions. There are infinite questions when it comes. I've been rattling off questions. So I have thousands of these questions in my book. So
in your bank
repertoire, yeah.
Wow.
Because
so you play Kaun Banega Karodpati with yourself.
Totally. Literally 3 सवाल आपको आज के पूछा जाएगा. मैं एक ही सवाल पूछता हूँ and I have this hourglass and I turn it because I don't give myself time to answer that question. The trick is use an hourglass, turn it around and says before the sand drops, I have the answer to the question. So that your answer comes from the irrational side. Iceberg के अंदर से आ रहा है, बाहर से नहीं आ रहा है.
Because rational will always kind of think
justify
and justify the answer. Okay.
It's like, literally मैं $100 टेबल पर रखा हूँ. कोई एक चैरिटी, कोई एक कॉज को दे सकते हो. कौन से कॉज को दोगे आप? Simple answer. कितना simple question है. But उसके answer में there is a interesting thing. If someone says animal, if someone says, wildlife conservation, if someone says climate change, good enough. ऐसे वो divide कर लो 3 जगह में $100 को. किसको दोगे बताओ? बड़ा simple सा question है. These are all human questions. Vishal, आपके grandson के लिए, imagine human values are dying. There is an epidemic. Assume there's an epidemic. And human values are dying. One value at a time वो लोग खत्म होता जा रहे हैं. आपको एक पावर मिला, एक वैल्यू को आप प्रिजर्व कर सकते हो एक वैल्यू वॉल्ट में, जैसे वो सीड वॉल्ट होता है ना, जहाँ पे सीड्स रखा गया है, where you can, if there's humanity goes through a crisis, they can pull out the seeds. एक value vault है. Vishal is allowed to keep one value for his grandkids to access. What value would you store in your value vault?
Respect. That's it.
You see, it tells me something about what is relationship with the rest. There are so many values. You picked up instinctively, you picked up one. कुछ तो reason होएगा उसका. That's the part that you need to talk to most often. Once you talk to that part,
you are accessing the operating system already. Huh?
I am. इसके बाद बात करते हैं कि तुम्हारा no, but it's not, and it's the more the data, the richer the awareness of the operating system. I lean on big data, but the nature of data is different. You must access the data. I mean, that is self-awareness for me. Not self-awareness, not बैठ के मंत्रा पढ़ो. उससे कोई फायदा नहीं होगा.
Yeah, because at one end they are all saying leave every moh maya, don't ask too many questions, empty your mind. That's the typical shusha we hear about, and buy only Baba Ramdev products.
वो सब कर लो आप, वो आपको मजा आता है वो करो, but that's escapism.
Okay.
कि आप वो ऋषिकेश वाला फंड है. आप you meet your life where it meets you. Take it head on, play the game, and play it well.
So on mental health, how is this going to help people if they kind of do this for themselves? How does it help them?
Mental health starts with this anxiety of कि मेरे को अपने साथ मजा नहीं आ रहा है. Breaking it all down to saying it's a design crisis. Design is that who I am out externally and who I am internally are not in sync with each other. That is the mental health problem by them. I'm breaking it down to the most basic thing. बाहर का मैं जो और अंदर का मैं जो दो अलग अलग जो चीजें हैं, उनको कैसे मर्ज किया जाए. And the way to solve that is that the more I know कि मैं अंदर से कौन हूँ, then I will start finding ways to live that life better. Addictions कहाँ से आते हैं? Where do addictions come from? Where do your anxieties come from? Where do the fetishes and fantasies come from? The same place mental health comes from. And if there are certain mental health issues which are derived from, let's say, traumas and stuff which happen, because, I'm not taking into account those, but a bulk of it.
Yeah, PTSD and stuff like that, yeah.
So, but the bulk of mental health starts with this anxiety, I'm not enjoying, and then it grows and grows and grows and grows, and you feed it with more fear, more. But you can work on that by saying, listen, go out and do something that energizes you. There are 4 principles that keep you going. One is called authenticity, that become a little more, operate from a space which you find authentic. There'll be no pressure on you.
You can't fake it, right? You have to be truthful.
So the more you're less pressurized. Then you be authentic. So you're like, I'm this person, and which means your challenge of, I'm faking it will create stress in your life. Second one is operate from a space of mastery. कौन सा चीज़ है जिसमें उनका काफी confidence है? Because bulk of people don't know what they're masters of. You must find your master. The third one is what gives me true joy. Because, what gives me the genuine kind of happiness. If you get that, what energizes me? One monk told me that. Simple. They said, Dash, simple. One line answer of anything, any action that leaves you with more energy at the end of it.
Energizes you.
Is right action. It's like you meet a person, he energizes you, right person. A job that energizes you, कि 5 बजे अगर आपको energy बढ़ जाता है, right job. I've always held on to that thought.
That's a good one.
Simple. At the end of that experience, if you're left with more energy, go back to that because that's the right thing.
Yeah. Be the force. You have to be the force for others.
You have to be the
energize,
force.
Yeah.
You energize. So energy is a big force. Mastery is a big force. And you will know that it is psychology responding to. It's Vishal's psychology. Energy is a psychological concept. The same running can de-energize somebody. It energizes me, which is why I lean on it. So, energy, mastery, authenticity, and purpose. एक तो अपने बाहर एक गोल होना चाहिए. Which is not looking at you. Survival तो हो ही जाएगा, but we need to look out.
A bigger goal, something bigger than yourself.
That is the game, because you peg yourself higher there.
So that's how we introduce karma points.
I know, we were talking about it, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Like how do we create a movement? Remember my conversation with you, saying you are giving shape to a movement.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of that movement?
So in fact, interestingly, we just announced last week addition of the Goki family plan. So pehle it was just an individual signing up to Goki, but now you can actually get your entire family on the plan.
Wow.
And the insight we got was that there are already people who are signing their families, because for one person to make a change was more difficult. But as a family, they could actually change much more faster.
Correct.
So
and one will encourage the other.
Exactly.
The
and
collective
the
power.
families are more likely to succeed than just individuals. So we have launched the family plan.
Fabulous.
Which kind of goes to that whole level of tribes and
talking about inciting, the Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the largest family model. Or if you look at, the who goes to the box, that fitness community which goes to the box. CrossFit.
Yeah.
They actually hinge on the insight of the community.
Yeah.
One solves for an addiction problem, Alcoholics Anonymous, because they create a family structure around the problem. Similarly, the CrossFitters, it's not a fitness community, it's a community that comes. So what you're trying to do is actually unlock the power of the community.
And I think one of the core values of Goki is practice what you preach. So we would not recommend or do or eat or do anything to anyone if we don't do it ourselves.
That's right.
So,
which is amazing.
So it is not
you are the brand. So
exactly. So you need to be authentic completely.
Totally.
So that's really what we do.
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Over 47% of online users in India have experienced harassment at some point. So if it's two of us inside this recording studio, chances are pretty high that one of us has faced abuse at some point. How do we tackle this? What do we need to do better? Come, let's learn together. Join me on Akanksha Against Harassment at IVM Podcasts every Thursday. Let's learn how to make online a safe place together.
So now, all the big brands in the world are chasing you, hiring you. So what do you tell these brands? What is missing? Why are these brands losing out to people like Baba Ramdev?
I think one is this whole issue of they've forgotten the human in the equation. Because whether it's the Wall Street model or the capitalistic model, whatever it is, capitalism as an idea, I think somewhere the human is missing. And there is a need for meaning. So Baba Ramdev is a meaning maker. He's selling meaning. He's not selling oils and toothpaste. He's selling an ideology which resonates with people.
Ayurveda,
Indianness, Swadeshi, whatever it is. So brands for a very long time, businesses for a very long time, their only purpose was profit. There was no purpose. Some of these new age brands, whether you call it a Patagonia out there somewhere.
Patagonia just did this huge thing about what's happening with the environment.
What happened with the environment? So they actually an environmental company selling clothes. It's not the other way around.
Yeah.
It is not a clothing company selling environmental issues. They're actually an environmental company which happens to sell clothes.
Yeah.
So I encourage brands to think of their existence through this lens. Listen, you're not in the business of business. You're in the business of purpose.
Yeah.
Business is a result of your chasing a purpose.
So, just taking up your idea, right? So we discovered our biggest competition is not any other company, brand or app. It's laziness.
Totally.
So we are trying to basically...
You're fighting inertia. Yeah.
We are fighting inertia.
Absolutely.
That's really...
And once you design for that, Vishal, you will have people signing up because you have tapped into a human code.
Yeah.
Then your purpose will lead you to profit. And then the businesses of CSR, we will put 3% for CSR. There is nothing called CSR. It is the purpose that drives businesses. So the brands of the future, at least in the next...
Tom's.
Look at this. Look at Tom's.
Yeah.
And there are tons of brands, even Unilever for that matter. Some of the most profitable brands are also the most purposeful brands.
Yeah.
Paul Pullman is a guy I respect a lot. He stands up for the goals that he sets. Like, I will cut down plastic by 3% of consumption. It's beautiful. Water consumption by that. So just acknowledging it is a point of truth for a business. Just acknowledging, saying, listen, I want to do that.
So I know this is a little long, but actually mein aap karte kya wo batao matlab. What is really your current job? What do you do?
Yeah, depends when you ask that question. There are different answers to that. But the core of it, I mine for insights. I'm the person who looks for, in the patterns of data, I hunt for human insights.
What does it mean? Uska matlab kya hai?
इसका मतलब है कि मैं कहानी ढूंढता हूँ. हर चीज में मैं उसका अंदर का कहानी ढूंढता हूँ. कि इंसान, and usually it's a human story. कि if you give me tons of data, whether it's quantitative, qualitative, I start looking for उसके अंदर क्या है. What is the underlying pattern? What is the underlying human code that drives this?
And then how does that translate back into the product?
Yeah. So once I know, let's assume you
give me an example of something you can
I'll give you an
talk
example. So, I mean, I can literally prototype it for you, which is now fashionable called design thinking and all that. But basically, if you say, I want to build a house, Dash, what kind of house should I build? I have no idea what that house should be. And so I said, Vishal, let's talk about yourself. And
red color house.
Red colors. No, I wouldn't say red color. I'm like, let's go back in your journeys. Like, what does home mean for you? I wouldn't say, because home is a place where you dock yourself for rest, for rejuvenation, for whatever it is, right? And I will talk to your family. I will not just talk to you. I'll talk to your kids, and I'll talk to your wife, and I'll go and I'll say, Vishal, can I spend time with you, just traveling around with you for 15 days? So that's called ethnography fashionably. But basically, I'm hanging around to understand what life does Vishal lead? What kind of food does he consume? So I'm jotting down who's Vishal's and what is Vishal's idea of home. Where does he feel most restful? Where does he feel most joyous? What is the relationship with kids? What does the kids want? So at the end of a 15-20 day period, I would have got a battery of ideas. And then I'd say, Vishal, let's do a blueprint of your house now. Because I have enough ideas, insights about Vishal to be able to be the architect to design his house. But I've not just looked at materials and this and that. That we will get anyways. But if you are conscious of sustainability, it will show up in the data. Then I will say, listen, let's look for sustainable material. If you want rounds, if I look for symmetry in your life, then I will say, he's a minimalist, he's a symmetry person. Then we'll say, your house will be symmetrical for sure, you don't worry about it. And then saying, what does the joy mean? Like I said, what does the happiness room mean? I was asking you a question there. So I would ask you these questions as I'm journeying with you. At the end of this 15 days, you and I would sit and run a workshop where I would bring all of this together and I will design a blueprint for your house that genuinely resonates with you. So today, I can build a blueprint of a house for you. I can do a blueprint of your breakfast for you, which can go to Kellogg's. I can blueprint the next job for you, which could be a job design. Or I could blueprint your life for you, saying, let's blueprint our life for the next 10. So it could be coaching. So everything is in that same space. And let me go and understand who you are as a person. I could do it for Vishal, and I could do it for 1,500 people who's called, one particular culture.
Wow. And you're now planning to launch an app to do this also.
Correct. The goal is to make people dig into their stories through a journey they can take inwards. The problem is that people always look out. My goal is to turn them a little inside and say, once in a while, go within. Once in a while, go within to discover insights about
instead of reading somebody else's biography, read your own biography.
Your own biography. Play that game of introspection. It's a game of introspection.
And I think that's really, if you ask this Myers-Briggs and all these things, right? They ask you questions about yourself and then they give you a personality type. So is it?
Yeah, but that's slotting. That's like, I'll slot you on, it's like your zodiac sign. Are you a Taurian? Are you this? That gives you surface level ideas, but it doesn't take you down. This one would be like you discover your own thoughts. There is no pattern to it. You will discover, what kind of, why am I saying this about my kids? What is it that about my job that I dislike? Myers-Briggs doesn't do that. Myers-Briggs tells you, you're a Taurian or you're whatever it is, in that sense. But what you're supposed to be doing is discovering a little bit about your every day. And your life is changing constantly. You're not a static map, you're a moving map.
So same question could have different answers.
Yes, absolutely. Because you're a father today, you would have a different answer to the same question of what is joy. Because before you met your kids, you would not know that joy also had this expression. Similarly, before you lost your leg, you would not know what being handicapped means. So when I say handicapped, because we're all disabled, we're all handicapped. So on the positive side and on the negative side, life keeps training us. And evolution is about knowing more of yourself in the context of where you are.
So in this whole era of Facebook, there was this whole talk about how Facebook and Google are at a mass level brainwashing you. Fake news is coming and they're influencing behavior. And there's also a whole question around the ethics of social media itself. So in this world where the reality is we're all on social media. Now, how does one disconnect or how does one insulate ourselves from the ill effects of the influence of social media without going completely off it?
Yeah. It's been a question that I've struggled with personally myself. It's not an easy answer to that question. It's born out of a deep crisis of self, which is why are people running up to social media is not because the family structures are broken, the dining tables are deserted. So there's a deeper reason why there is this movement has grown this big, and I respect that, and I respect what has happened in the space. But now I also see where we are headed with this. Our attention is being traded. Our attention is, per se it was fine, but when it moves into the space of manipulating my attention, that's what concerns me, is the fact that you could actually design the way I think about things. It bothers me a lot because it brings into it an ethical dilemma of saying, do I want to trade with my thought? Because if knowledge is based on all the inputs that comes to my mind, and if this is the only input that I'm getting, I'm not reading books, I'm not looking at outside of, I'm not connected with my own inner wisdom, my ancient wisdom, and if social media is my only feed, and if all your ideologies are designed around that, and if that's being manufactured by some 10 coders sitting somewhere, and they're designing it literally ball by ball, and you could call it machine learning, you could call it whatever. My concern is that, am I being manipulated beyond a point? And I would not want to be part of that journey at all. So it's, for me, as a designer, as an insider, I would take a stance saying, can there be another idea of a design philosophy where it says we will not want to engage? Let's say if there was a Facebook post saying, if the next action was to say, watch more on Netflix or go meet a friend, I would probably want to design that into an app to saying, now I know you're getting lonely, don't watch the next one, please go and meet a friend. And then the same app dials a friend and says, what are you doing now? You want to have a glass of beer with me? So that would be a good way. I mean, everything for me is a design challenge. And so if I could design interaction, if I could design conversations, if I could design into the same social media. Now think of Facebook me a platform of offline, online interaction, people coming together, mother and father having a conversation, then I would have tremendous respect for that. With the same Facebook says, don't keep watching me, go do something. And I will encourage you to do that.
In fact, now they even started auto-playing videos so that you don't miss
So that
the
you
video.
don't miss. So I feel that you could activate many other things. You're just activating my attention because your monetary model is based on attention. Because everyone is fighting for a little, slice of that attention pie. Because their business models are based on attention, not on behavior. If the business models are based on behavior, they will be monetized. Because today it's purely based on attention. So anything, any price you have to pay to get attention, they will do that. Whoever that is. But if it was behavioral, say Facebook says, it'll switch off. So a good example in the other ground is Patagonia. Patagonia says, do not buy my clothes. And they literally mean it. Do not buy my clothes because we will make it so good that you need, and we will repair it for you. We will, so they celebrate the longer you wear their clothes, the happier they are.
Wow.
The longer you wear their clothes, if you just check on what they're advertising, like they celebrate people who have that stitching their tone Patagonia, jackets and stuff like that, and they send trailer trucks to repair people free of cost. So imagine a business model which accommodates for that philosophy, and it's operating today. When they say don't buy this jacket, and they mean it. So similarly, Facebook says you don't have to sit and watch this, and I will commercialize myself at that level. Then I would love social media.
So in today's world, people are struggling to write one-page resume. Give us 5 ways that I can write a 5-page resume at least. You have a 180-page. I'm sure not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
But
so there are. You could only ask 4 questions. The moment, like I said, you get answers to that. Who are you? What's your mastery? What's your joy? And what's your mission? In this one page. Who are you? In any simple way, but who are the true you? Like, who is authentically you? That you will feel good at the end of it. What's your mastery? What is that one thing that you could master? Whatever that is, cooking, cleaning, parenting, which you'll draw meaning from that mastery. It doesn't have to be some job somewhere. It can't be astrophysics. It doesn't have to be, it could be something as simple as, I'm a great father, or I'm a great musician, whatever it is. Find your mastery, because that Japanese, that documentary on Jiro.
Yeah, Jiro. Sushi, yeah.
And 87, mastery is sushi. He just does that, and he does it every day of his life.
Obama had to wait for 1 year to get a reservation there. It's insane.
It is insane. And imagine, he's not a big
So
daddy.
I saw his restaurant from outside. Of course, I didn't have a reservation. And
Yeah.
there is like signs that don't take photo here. Of course, I took a photo.
Of course you would.
But that's how it is. It's like people
He celebrates mastery for me. No, he's not some game changer of the world. He just makes sushi, but he represents mastery. So find yourself, find your mastery, find your joy. And joy is not sukha dukkha in the sense, there is no happiness, unhappiness. Joy is above. Joy is what Campbell calls bliss. It's like find that moment where you feel energized. You feel good about yourself. For someone it's adventure. For someone it is people. For someone it is music. In that moment you feel good. You feel expansive.
But in this world of instant gratification, where people want to feel good now, you write something, you want to...
That's stimulation. That's not good. That's stimulation. Stimulation, you can smoke a cigarette and get stimulated. You can have alcohol and you feel good about yourself for a bit, but But that is different from the energy that I'm talking about. That's very different, and you know the difference. When the joy of meeting friends and having a conversation is very different from the joy of
So with all these amazing ideas and insights, why are you still not a Baba somewhere, and why are you not having millions of followers? Thinking of doing of listening to you and following you.
And I'll tell you something.
You already started growing this beard, of course.
I'll tell you something very controversial. Actually, the thing that stops us from evolving is the priesthood. The Babas have clinically destroyed the Babas and the priests. So it's actually they're the power positions of the business. So their business model is based on power and not on healing or on your finding the truths or whatever. Incidentally, that can happen, but actually they're about followership. And so they will do anything to, it's like Facebook. It would mean I want to take your attention and I will commercialize attention. So for me, I don't see any difference between one and the other. But the true coaches are the people who would be away from, whose business model is based on not being around. It's like, how far can I go from you? It's like, in the Himalayas, they would say, this guru would say it's called Neti School of Teaching. Neti School of Teaching is you come with a question and this guru says, is this the answer, Guruji? And you say, Neti. And you go away. And then you come back again. And he says, I found the answer. Acha, ye hai Guruji. I mean, he will rattle off. And Guru says, Neti. He'll go away. Third time he comes. And he says, now, Baba, I've got it. I've got the final. So he's like, this is Neti. He goes away. Fourth time he doesn't come. Why does he not come?
Because he found the answer.
Exactly.
Ooh.
So
amazing.
That is the true coach. It was like Neti, go away.
Find the answer or yourself. You are your guru, which is why I would discourage anyone from saying, no, I don't want to start a business out of this. It's the idea of you find your answers yourself. My job is to unlock that inside God
journey.
has given the same qualities to everyone.
Everybody. You just have to acknowledge that I have the power in me. And the urge to, the quest is the most important part. The quest, it has to be, this was Ramakrishna who used to say that. You said, no, why did at 32 you do this way? And many people would have done it different ways. People said, I found a job and I settled down. So when this disciple went to Ramakrishna, the Paramahansa, and he said, I want to know who's God. He's like, tu ghar ja yaar, tu abhi mata. No, I need to, you meet God every day. Do you meet God? Say, I meet God, but I want to know God. Yeah? And he says, mere ko hack bata de. So Ramakrishna gave him the hack, the shortcut, like you asked. Huh? Ramakrishna was like, chalo mere saath. So he said, nahane chal mere saath. So he goes goes to the river bank, and they both go into the waters, and Ramakrishna takes his head and shoves it into the water. Puts it in, and this kid, this fellow is struggling, and he pulls him out, puts it back into the water. And he's struggling and pulls it out, puts it back in. And the third day, he's breathless and like, what are you? You're killing me. So Ramakrishna says, Bhagwan mila? He said, kya baat karo? Bhagwan ke baare mein kaun soch raha tha? He said, tum kya soch raha tha? So when I put your head inside the water, what were the different things you're saying? What do you mean different things I was thinking? I was only thinking of one thing. What were you thinking? I was thinking of air. He's saying when you get that desperate about God, God will find you. It's your desperation that defines it. Not so much, there's no hack. The hack is your desperation.
The hack is that there is no hack.
There is no hack. No, the hack is the quest. You have to find the urge that I have to solve this problem myself. It's a puzzle. It's a gamer's mind to unlock the next insight.
So how do you make people to do this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like the question is that, like MBA schools are training people to be, business managers.
Yeah.
How can more and more people get into self-discovery and self-learning and be their own gurus?
Yeah, my trick is, there is a hack for that, by the way. It's called create pain before pain happens,
Okay. How do you do that?
which is create mini crises in their lives. So when the real crisis hits, at least you're prepared by them. So the goal as a coach,
How do you create a mini crisis?
you create a crisis and asking questions they don't have answers for.
Okay.
And you start by that. And you create scenarios saying, okay, in this scenario, what would you do? So you play those scenario sessions.
You are 37 and you just get a heart attack.
Yes.
What is your plan?
What's your plan? That's the kind of question we would ask. That's the kind of, so you create crisis because in those people we hide, right? Probability wise, you are your single biggest enemy today. And the thing that you're most scared of is meeting yourself. Not public speaking, not death. The thing you're most scared of
Is yourself.
is meeting yourself. So as a coach, I would first make you meet yourself. And in meetings, can't be happy moments, khana khate hain, gappe maar. Meet your crisis. Beyond that, you will find, wo dar ke aage jeet hai. It's like, wo dar ke aage wo jeet milega tumko. Because that dar, you hide away from that. But when it hits you, you don't know how to handle it. That's when, you get debilitated. So I would rather build your immune system before that. You would rather build your immune system to be able to handle that. Then when it hits you and you don't have something to hold on to.
Mini crisis.
Create a mini crisis. Create your own crisis is one of the nicest advice.
So be in chaos.
Be in chaos.
Which is what I do all the time.
Which is, absolutely. Yourself and others like, thoda chaos karte hain.
Create an environment of chaos. Anyway, so what is the next chaotic thing you're going to do after this?
There are so many out there. Well, one of the goals is to design an algorithm to solve for self-awareness. That's the chaos.
That sounds really simple.
It is.
Of course not.
The algorithm for self-awareness. So I met this guy, Meng, and he left me with this mission statement. He's like, so Meng was
Hong Kong, this guy from Hong Kong.
From Singapore, actually, who was Google's employee number 9. He ran a program, and particularly, I think he runs a program called Search Inside Yourself in Google.
Search inside yourself.
Search inside yourself. It's like Google, so I want to design the Google for yourself. So that's my goal, is to say there must be a search bar, a question shows up and you type, and it searches for,
So there was this company who's trying to put your intellect or your thing into a computer. I forgot the name of that thing, but they're basically saying if your body dies, your mind is going to survive on a computer.
Correct.
So isn't that similar to that in a way?
Well,
because if you have all the answers,
so they can transfer physiologically and intellectually. They can transfer you. We still haven't figured out whether it's going to transfer the psychological aspect of you, because the cryptology of the psychic self is very different. And so I might transfer the way you think, all of that, but your anxieties and your depressions and your key challenges and your relationship with your son, in the gooiness of it, the gooiness of that. I don't know if you can transfer that. So far, I don't think the gooey part of life can.
It's amazing, right? If you can crack the OS, the OS and then the underlying memory and the apps is what it is.
Well, some people are trying it out. I heard about this app. Not app, but this thing which is trying to decode your memory. So one of the things is that your dreams are reflective of your innermost anxieties, is what they say. Your dreams are because you can't express themselves, they show up in your dreams. So these guys are designing a product where you could record your dreams. A large bunch of people start recording dreams every morning. And people are able to analyze those dreams and actually predict what will happen in the future, because those anxieties will show up in social, so forensic scientists and, intelligence experts are doing that.
I do, in my own experience, I sometimes do get a sense of deja vu that, ye kahin pehle dekha tha. Then I realize that maybe I dreamt about it.
Exactly. Because dreams are projections of your, of the things that you want to see or the things that are unresolved in you.
So you're going to create the search engine
for self.
For self. And what else? This seems like you've already cracked it.
No, it's not. It's far away from that. The human, the matrix is the most complex matrix, and to unlock that itself is a big challenge. And That will be a job of a lifetime, honestly. And I learned it, very early in my life, do one thing well.
Mastery is important.
Mastery is very, very important. So I become very linear around some of these.
So, have you found your answers by now? Most of the answers you were looking for?
It's a very nice question. And the answer it is, when you hold a compass, Vishal, when you hold a compass, it shows where north is all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time it shows where north is, wherever you are. So what happens when you hold your own compass in your hand is, you can be anywhere, but you're never in the crossroads, because you know which way is north. Wherever you are, you can walk towards the monastery of self. So yes, I get lost. I have my own anxieties. I have my own challenges, but I always know that I'm holding the compass somewhere. And I know what north looks like. So I'm never at the crossroads. So there's a crisis of crossroads is very different from the crisis of the distance. I think, have you reached where you want to go? No, far from it.
But do you know where you're going?
Yes.
Is the question.
Yes. Very clearly. The direction I know. I know what my north is. Mm-hmm. I'm maybe slow at it. I'm going maybe, that journey could be anxious. But
I think that's what it said, right? In today's life, what you need is a compass and not a map. Because
absolutely.
There is no map.
There is no map.
There is no map.
But you need a compass.
Yeah. But everybody is trying to find a map. Everybody wants to know, how do I go from point A to point B exactly plotted. And the reality...
That's the quantified self.
Yeah, but there is no map. There is only a compass. And you have to keep losing your way to ultimately reach there.
So we need to hold our moral compass, our emotional compass, and emotional well-being is going to become anchored around that compass, saying, doesn't matter what crisis falls and what happens there. And the fact that I'm holding my compass in my hand is very reassuring to me.
So, you also talked about different layers of who am I. So there was the spiritual side, and there were other sides also, right, which you talked about a bit. On the who am I question, which you really want people to answer. There is a spiritual side.
See, what I call is, there are three levels. So there is the transcendent self, which is, who am I, the spiritual side.
And you know the answer for that.
No, that's a irrelevant question, because you and I can't talk about it. So I don't want to enter that space. Okay. And so if I say, acha, aapko pata hai ki aise nahi pata? Acha, nahi pata to kyun baat karo? Pata to tum guru ho gaye. So it's all stupid. So it's something that...
Because who am I is not just... there are different kinds of who am I.
As a transcendent who am I is a very different question. You have to find, Buddha went for his own search, and they'll find, or, Jesus went for his own search and found, or whatever that was. So let's not get there. You have to take that spiritual journey of your own kind. You will find your mythology. You will find your, gods and goddesses, and you'll live with it. But that's a different journey from who am I in this world. In this world is a very important. Now, don't mix one with the other. And the third, who am I, is the material body. Physiologically, I have to be fit. I am a diabetic. I am struggling with, chronic, depression, whatever that is. So to take charge of these three who am I, the physiological I, the emotional I, and the spiritual I, are three different things. And one should not treat the other with disrespect. Each one is to be respected in its own way. So I call it transcendence, meaning, and living. So there must be living plan where I live, I eat, I'm in harmony with the environment. So which is why climate change is important, because the body is dying. Not just my body, the body of the planet is dying. You can find, spirituality in gods, but, you build temples, but the planet is destroyed. But where will the temples last? So the goal is to find the home that you want to live in physiologically, emotional home, and the spiritual home. You have to find all three homes, and then three different journeys that you have to take for each. And for the second one is what my focus is, not the first and the last. There are a lot of people working on the first and the last. My focus is on the second one, which is find meaning and find your emotional home where you want to live. And in that you find tranquility.
So how do people know if they are lost?
Anxiety.
Anxiety
and agitation is the single biggest trigger.
A lot of people I find people just angry. There are just people like signal pe kuch hua and they are screaming and shouting and, howling. And I'm like, dude, or just keeping on honking.
This is the inner anxiety just showing up. I mean, the guy on the other side is not listening.
Yeah.
They're listening to their own shouting, by the way. They're a recipient of their own anger. So there is... this is where we are, because we are unhappy with the surroundings that we are in. I mean, if I put you in a place which you don't like, if I'm claustrophobic, let's say, and if you put me in a place where there are tons of people, what's the natural reaction? I'll feel agitated. And then if you push me a little bit in that point, I'm saying, ready, bugger off. So that's what is happening.
So I had this interesting story with this friend. We were in the US. This person is driving and वो हर 2 मिनट में गालियां दे रहा है. उसको बोला, देख भाई, जो तू गाली दे रहा है कोई बाहर तो किसी को सुन नहीं रही है, मेरे को सब गाली लग रही है, तो गाली देना बंद करो.
And inward spiral chalte rehta. You know, you start doing this with yourself and you wire yourself up.
तेरी ऐसा है मेरा यार, उसको तो सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है, मैं ही हूँ इधर.
No, and there are people who get angry, but it diffuses immediately. That anger is very different, but that's part of their nature, which is like, and they don't carry it. They don't carry it. They just blow up and blow down and move on with life. It's the other anger, which is like that, you know, the fuming.
Pent up jo andar.
That is stress. And anxiety leads to agitation leads to stress leads to, it's the upward cycle, and from there. So the source point of this miracle, maza nahi aa raha hai, like, you know, I don't enjoy myself.
So when will your app is going to be ready so that everybody in this world can download
help you build it?
No, of course we'll help you build it, but it's going to be called the story. What?
It's called My Story. I mean, we haven't given it a name, but you know,
and your company is called the Story Company.
Yeah, that's the work that we do. For a bunch of us come to coach in that platform. It's called the Story Company, where helps you find your story.
तेरी कहानी क्या है भाई? You know,
तेरी कहानी क्या है? बस वही है. कहानी अंदर है, तुम खुद ढूंढो. You know, it's not a storytelling app. It's a story finding app. Storytelling is different.
The story of you.
Yeah, the story of you.
The story of you.
अपना कहानी खुद लिखो.
So before I go, I wanted to ask you a few other interesting things now that I find you here. So what are the 2 questions or 3 questions everybody should ask themselves? You had said what mastery I have.
Yeah, so there are 4 important questions. The first question is, who am I? And not in a metaphorical way, but in a tangible way. Who am I? Who am I? How do I know myself? Second one is, what's your mastery? What's your joy? And what's your mission? If you have answers to these 4 questions, then you're on a good track. The intersections of these 4.
And which are the 4 or 5 books you recommend people should read?
Oh yeah, depends. I mean, you're asking a book lover to pick his,
Well, for somebody who wants to write the story of himself or them or herself, what's a good place to start?
There are a few books. Well, definitely, I would go back to the Gita. It's a phenomenal.
Is there an easier? I mean, I've tried to read the Gita a couple of times, but I just couldn't go beyond. Is there a simpler version of Gita? Sorry, I'm like.
Yeah, no, there is one. I think I enjoyed reading. There's a gentleman called Swami Parthasarathi. He's written Vedanta treatise.
Oh, okay.
Because
I also there are many.
Yeah, but I think his translation of that is the simplest, and the metaphors and the similes he uses are the easiest to consume without losing the essence of it. Without losing essence, the Vedanta treatise has been a phenomenal book in terms of helping people like us. Even the language that is used is very simple. I feel you must. There is another gentleman called Ravi Ravindra who's written a book on Gita called Ravi Ravindra is a beautiful. He's a physics teacher in Canada. He teaches quantum physics, but he's written a book on Gita and worth reading that book. His book is on Gita. So these 2 I would pull out from the bunch of other Gita. Ishwaran's written good books on Upanishads and Gita. Ishwaran is a very famous man, but I would pick up Swami Parthasarath's book and Ravi Ravindra's book on the Gita, and their analysis of it, very, very scientific, very methodical, very contemporary, as I would call it. I would pick up the Gita. I would pick up Man's Search for Meaning. Every person must read that. It's a small book, but it impacts you significantly. Man's Search for Meaning is an important book. And the third one is if you have the urge for it, The Undiscovered Self by Carl Jung. He talks about the part that you never meet.
The undiscovered self.
The undiscovered self. It's it'll take you on a journey inwards, and there are many books of the kind, and but these books are my favorites because they have taken me to different realms. By the way, so one takes me to a spiritual realm, one takes me to the inner realm, and so it's these are books which have brought tremendous clarity to my life.
And what are the 5 things you carry with you everywhere? You travel so much so that you can't go out without that.
I live very minimally, so actually my campus shoes is one, which I always, this one brand that I never, I mean, I know you also do that. You carry your own. So that, and Something that I carry always is, this is very personal, but I'm sharing this with you.
Oh.
This is something I've never shared with anybody, but
That's
now that you
interesting.
asked me this question,
Yeah.
this is a gift of my uncle who was a big mentor, my Mamaji. He had gifted this to me. It's torn and it's sort of gone away. It's just, it's little thing he picked up in a temple in Gujarat where you can't read it. It's a sculpture which is still there. I mean, so it's a sculpture where the sculptor has sculpted himself out of that. So this says, you are the chisel, you're the stone, and you're the sculptor.
You are the stone, you are the chisel, you are the sculptor. Amazing words.
And that gives me tremendous confidence. You were talking about confidence, right?
Yeah.
It's like I take charge of my life. So this was my gift of my uncle who passed away 3 years back. But
Was he the same guy with NASA, your uncle at
Yes,
NASA?
he was the
yeah,
guy. He's
of course,
the guy.
I know. So he's the guy who was like with NASA for several
he
years.
was Neil Armstrong's doctor, and he was in the US,
Wow.
and he's brought,
Space medicine, he must be a pioneer of that.
Yeah, and ECG. He actually brought ECG into India.
Wow.
And lived, and he was a Upanishad scholar. He knew the Bible inside out. He was talking to me about one day about St. John's Gospel. The next day he would talk to me about Kena Upanishads. Third day he would talk to me about biochemistry and so he was a big influence in my life, and he brought spirituality, science.
I can imagine
philosophy.
this gift he has given you. It's such powerful words.
Yeah, so he's like, never forget this. So I carried that.
And close to my favorite quote, which is, you can if you think you can, right? That's what it is.
Absolutely. And this is almost the same as this.
Yeah.
Like, don't run away from the joy of what it is. So I think that is.
So you carry this?
I
Amazing.
carried always with me. Always.
And of course, you carry, what technology do you own, and what is your...
Nothing.
Phone, of course you have a phone.
The phone is a boring technology. I don't even
You don't
treat
even
it. It's a
consider it.
disposable technology. Technology is, my mind technology, very sophisticated idea. I mean, what Kevin Kelly talks about, the technique. I mean, my thoughts are my technology that I carry. The algorithms that I carry is my technology.
Wow. And we already have an operating system figured
that's
out.
operating. So I think of technology as that. It's that wiring that you carry. And so these are very dumb, cavish stuff,
So do you use any apps?
No, almost none. Except for some news apps, which I watch because BBC or stuff. I don't use...
So you don't use any apps? You are off social media, social media?
Off social media.
You're off social media.
I don't have time. I'm just too lazy on those fronts, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And because I value my time a lot. I mean, everything must be based on something. It's not that it must be valuable, but it must have meaning in its own sense. Like, this conversation is meaningful for me. Similarly, a time spent at home is meaningful for me. Times when thinking about my business or that search engine is meaningful for me. So I have limited time. I must deploy it in places that... And in fact, I'm never bored, by the way.
The most expensive thing in the world is time.
Totally.
Because every second which is lost is never going to come back, and there is a limited time for everybody in this world.
Totally.
And I think people just don't... That. And people just don't value it. Yeah,
I value time a lot. And my struggle is also with that. My joy is that, and my struggle is also, how do I shrink it further? How do I keep it simple? How do I optimize it in a way that...
So how do you unwind then?
In silence, in my running. That's my unwind. Other than that, my son and my family, my home.
And you have now moved to Singapore, right? A few years back.
5 years now. 5 years.
So how does it feel like living in a country which is like a shopping mall?
Well, I stay away from that part of Singapore. Okay. I stay around the jungles of Singapore, which is the manicured jungles of Singapore. But I don't go towards the shopping malls. But it is a big shopping mall. But Singapore is brilliant because it's clinically amazing for me to feel liberated. It's like, where do your energies go in Singapore is a question. People say, oh, it's so sterile, it's so this. I'm thinking, sterile. The sterility is good because then you will create your painting.
Yeah.
But if that was not sterile, I mean, Bombay, you get tired by the time you reach home. In Singapore, I'm able to go home and go for a run after that. So the sterility is beautiful because it calms me down. And Singapore I love going back home to Singapore because it's silence of a different kind. Singapore is silence. There's so little noise there, and noise at various levels. And so there's very little theater. Everything's predictable. so that I can become unpredictable in my own mind. Then. Because I don't.
That's like a thing. Living in a laboratory. You're living in a lab.
Yeah. But then I can be creative in that lab. Then I can tinker around, and then I can fool around. My energies are not dissipated in the taps running out and this happening and the electricity going off. And so I'm able to focus my attention on something very precious, which is my ideas, my family, thoughts.
So if you could change one thing in your life, going back, what would that be?
Change one thing.
Or one thing which you think could have been acted differently in your plan.
Yeah, I would have created a crisis early in my life. Very early in my life. So I met recently a young man who's working with me now, who became a failed entrepreneur at the age of 26, 27. I'm like, brilliant. Go deeper. What's that? So I was coaching him. I was like, go find the crisis, because you got it really early, and I took 7 extra years for that. So I would create a crisis very early on, so that my immunity is built up even earlier than that. And definitely, yes.
That's how vaccines work.
Correct.
They have to give you a little bit of the bug.
A little bit of that early. Even in there's an amazing story in Mahabharata. In fact, your favorite book that you referred to, saying Krishna says as he goes away, saying he asks people for gifts, saying, and my granddad told this to me, so I'm sure it's there somewhere. I haven't read that, but in Mahabharata says this, what gift do you want? And so everybody asks a little bit. Kunti says, give us a little bit of pain, so that we don't forget what happiness is all about. And I thought that's an interesting idea of saying, I would want my son to face his first crisis early.
Mm-hmm.
And in a very personal way, so that he's able to evolve, and I want to be around to help him get over that. I need a wizard. I have lived through wizards in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the world had more wizards. I have, and there was more crisis. And in between a crisis and wizard, you find that.
I mean, looking at what's happening in this world with, what's happening in Korea, America, India, I'm sure there will be a lot of crisis coming around.
Huge crisis.
And I'm sure everybody will remember you, Dash. And it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I've learned a lot myself. All I can tell you is hopefully when we meet next, I'll have a few more answers about myself. And I hope everybody listening also are going to start discovering themselves and start searching in their own search engine.
Their operating selves.
And their operating systems.
Thank you very much, Vishal. It's been such a joy as always.
Such a joy. Such a pleasure,
You
Dash.
energize me.
Thank you. Bye.
You.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.